Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for another edition, episode 25, hard to believe it, of the Arms Bumanlag project, coming to you live this evening from my home studios in beautiful Amherstburg, Ontario. And we're celebrating a milestone on the show. Yeah, again, it was quarter century, but 25 shows anyways in the can. And if you missed any of our past episodes, we've had a lot of awesome people on the show to talk about all things Windsor-Essex, from deep diving into their personal background to talking about what they've been doing during the pandemic and more. You can find us on a couple of different platforms if you can't join us live, but we definitely want you to interact with us live on the show. We do it a couple of times a week, much to the chagrin of my wife, so to speak. She always teases me that, you're doing these things at like 8 o'clock. I said, yeah, the boy's in bed, our son's in bed, so I get to exercise my broadcasting chops. But my guest tonight is certainly a man of many talents, somebody I've looked up to a tremendous amount during his days during City Council, and certainly his work in the healthcare sector. So we'll welcome him in just a couple of minutes. But as we said, we've had a couple of shows in the can. We had the host of Tailgate Takeout on the show, episode 24, last Friday, Jen Strong, talking about the industry of takeout here in Windsor-Essex. And then this Friday, good friend of mine, Bethany Russell, who is the owner and operator of Brava Music Academy, talking about somebody who's been doing a lot of pivots during COVID. Bethany's going to tell us a little bit more about some of the things she's been doing and all the great work she's been sort of inspiring in youth here in Windsor-Essex. But I digress, because my guest tonight, certainly if you are from the area, he needs no introduction, but he's getting one anyways, because he's a guy that has given a lot to the city of Windsor as a whole through his years as a city councillor and his years in a number of community organizations, helping to really push Windsor forward. He's done a lot of extensive work for the community, and he is currently a vice president at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare and the executive director of the Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare Foundation. My good friend, Mr. Bill Marra, is on the show with us this evening. Bill, always a pleasure to see you, sir. How are you doing so far?
Arms, pleasure is mine, and I'm doing great. Thank you. Good to see you again, my friend.
It is a pleasure to have you on the show. And I do want to say thank you. I know how crucially busy you are and how involved you are with a number of different projects here in the city. So it's a blessing to have you on the show and to finally reconnect and spend some time with each other. So first things first, I'd ask you how you're doing during COVID, but I know it's been a busy time for you guys at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare and the foundation as a whole.
Yeah, it's been a very busy time for many people across this community, particularly those who are in healthcare, and certainly my thoughts are always with our frontline folks, Arms, the men and women who are faced with the more crucial roles in providing clinical support and medical support to individuals that are either patients of ours here on Prince Road, or they're patients in an outpatient capacity. In other words, they come and get medical care. We had these conversations, in fact, today at the hospital, and I know you'll appreciate this. Healthcare workers and in a broad sense, essential workers, as they've been characterized, are really faced with challenges on a more regular basis, because they have to deal with the challenges of working in a COVID environment, perhaps in a healthcare institution, and then also be concerned about family, spouses, aging parents, children. And so every waking moment for them, the last 18, 20 months, has been preoccupied with COVID. And just when we think, we're turning the corner and the numbers seem to be subsiding, we're faced yet with another wave, or the potential of another wave. So, it's an ongoing concern, but, we work in a community where people are resilient, and it's no different here on Prince Road at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. Our staff are very resilient, very determined to do the job that they signed up for. And, whether these challenges, these are certainly very challenging times. But the other option, to give up, is not an option. And so I really appreciate the fact that we start off this program with you asking that question, because I know it's on the minds of many that there are men and women who have had to work very hard on the front lines of many essential sectors, and they continue to be top of mind for us here on Prince Road.
Yeah, and it's funny you should say that, Bill, too, because I was talking to somebody the other day too about the long haul of this, and that's something certainly I wanted to talk to you about, and some of the programs that are coming down the pipeline for Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare in regards to COVID and quote unquote the long haul too. But this really is not a sprint, right? This has been something I know that you have spoke to many times about this being a quote unquote marathon for folks to kind of wrap their heads around and say, okay, well, just because we may have had a dip in the summer, it doesn't mean we're quote unquote out of the woods yet.
You're absolutely correct. And, the initial reaction to this pandemic has been to get a handle on what this virus meant, the risk associated with it, the the demographics that are most at risk, finding ways to keep people safe. Then, of course, months into it, we start seeing the rollout of vaccines, a number of different vaccines, a lot of opinions out there on that, creating access to the vaccines. And public health has done their very best to create guidelines and protect people. And that's just getting through the initial part of the pandemic. There is a very long road ahead of us. As you and your listeners and viewers are likely aware, we launched a COVID recovery program here just a few months ago, and we have a gentleman who's become our ambassador and our spokesperson, if you will, a gentleman named Dominic Scandali,
Mm-hmm.
who experienced a very lengthy and risky battle, literally on death's door with his experience with COVID, is recovering quite nicely. And he's lent a voice to patients. It's one thing for you and I to talk about it, but to hear it from the voice of a person who's experienced it and their family, it's certainly incredibly powerful and moving, and it really inspires others to either support programs and services or to make sure that their loved ones get access to it. But before we went on the air, you and I were also talking about other implications associated with COVID, and
Sure.
that's the mental health part of it. This is having a tremendous impact on the mental health of our community and on families. There are families that have been stressed by this, either economically or socially, because of the social isolation.
Mhm.
Jobs have been impacted. Young people who have been impacted by this asking many questions, and it's tough for parents to be able to respond. Anyone who had a pre-existing mental health condition or an addiction, what we have found through our programs and services, that in many cases has been exacerbated. We saw a very acute demand for services. We set up some special programs last spring to address that. We saw many cases of people experiencing depression, panic and anxiety disorders, and certainly addictions related challenges as well. This will likely continue for not months, but for years to come. So, as a community, we need to prepare ourselves to understand this, support those around us that need the support. And in the case of hospitals, we have foundations that are out there raising money to provide above and beyond services, because this is simply not going to be a case of dealing with the virus through a vaccine. It's going to be dealing with the social implications and the long-term mental health implications of it. So, I don't mean to cast a very negative cloud over this conversation, but it's a
Sure.
realistic conversation, Arms. It is what
Yeah.
we're facing, and I think if we can embrace this and understand what we need to do and approach it in earnest, I think as a community, that resiliency that I spoke to earlier will really allow us to proceed forward and provide the support that is going to be necessary for the coming months and years.
Yeah, and I think that's crucial too, Bill. And I'm glad that you brought that up too, because when you take a look at sort of the pivots, and so often on the show since we started doing this back in May, if I've asked a lot of my guests who are in frontline work in the food service industry, who are business owners. I had CEO of Movati Athletic talking about some of his pivots that he's had to do, not only from a Windsor perspective, but certainly right across Canada. But you talk about that fundraising pivot that happens, and sort of that awareness pivot. I know when I had Danny Probert on the show last week, Danny had said that a lot of the pivoting we've done traditionally for you folks at Hôtel-Dieu has been for the cardiac care perspective, but now, like you said, Bill, I guess it is shifting over to that mental health aspect and that mental wellness, because I guess that's where the need is. That's where the crucial need is, especially with those forecasts that are coming out about how this is going to really impact us. Because I know for a lot of folks, Bill, it has felt like it's been decades, to say the least.
Mhm.
But it really has been coming up on 2 years. So, I mean, there's still, again, a long road to travel for this.
There is, and I want to speak a little bit to the pivoting that's occurred. I'll be honest with you. I was concerned that from a fundraising perspective, the financial impact would be greater than what we've experienced. In fact, it's been the opposite. And this community ceases to amaze me. They just step up time and time again, notwithstanding their own financial, perhaps, and even family challenges. This community has a way of rallying around those that are in need. I can think back to last year when Anita Imperioli and that wonderful organization in honor of the ones we love partnered with BK Cornerstone and the Klundert family. That project started about 2.5 years ago, just prior to the pandemic. And during the pandemic, they were able to finish off that amazing project, which was a house that was built and then auctioned off. And $190,000 of those proceeds were invested here. Now, as you and I both know, Anita has historically supported a number of programs that are typically cancer related. But in this case, both the Klundert family and the Imperiolis felt very strongly that those dollars get invested in the mental health and support services that we provide here. No different than with Danny Probert and the Probert family. In fact, just Monday, Labor Day, we were able to announce that we sold 2,400 tickets, raffled off a Harley Davidson motorcycle that David Cassidy and Local 444 donated to us fully, and we raised $60,000. And again, traditionally going to cardiac care because of the Probert family experience, but in this case, they saw fit that these dollars also support programs that are essentially investing in mental health and addiction services. So this community responds, and we have a wonderful relationship with the Canadian Mental Health Association of Windsor and Essex County, Claudia Denbor, and the CMHA. We have the Crisis and Wellness Center downtown on Olette Avenue, ARMS, and just remind people to go to 736 and 744 Olette Avenue. It's a barrier-free facility, ARMS, which means you don't need a referral, you don't need an appointment. If you need some help or support, walk in. You will meet with somebody. We will support you in any way possible and create the referrals that you need from there. And it's incredibly important that we continue to provide these services now more than ever.
Bill, you talk about those partnerships too, and I know Claudia and the team at CMHA, they do so much work for the community from that particular lens of mental health and have been for a number of years. And I certainly, from a foundation perspective, and there's so much we can dive into this hour too. And folks who are just joining the show, Bill Marra is my guest. We've got lots of ground to cover tonight. Comment in the feed if you've got a question or a comment for Bill or myself. We'd love to chat with you. That's why we do it live. You talk about those partnerships. I think, Bill, maybe if you can speak to how crucial it is that we build bridges in the climate that we're in, as opposed to maybe building walls, especially when it comes to servicing folks who really need the help in this COVID environment, especially in Windsor-Essex, about that positivity that can come through those partnerships.
Well, building these collaborative partnerships, I think the novelty of it has been discussed for years and years and years. It's a concept that's a lot easier said than done. But I want to reference what you just did, CMHA. Let's use them as an example.
Sure.
In 2014, we entered into a formal memorandum of understanding, and the two boards of directors need to be applauded for this. This was very, very significant and a real milestone achievement, because for years there was always concerns around what happens if I team up with someone. Is there a risk to our funding? Does it affect our identity or our independence? And egos were checked at the door. Those concerns were checked at the door. There was a lot of trust at the time with the leaders that were there, both our CEO and the CMHA CEO, Claudia and Janice Caffer. And the two boards of directors came to understand that if there's a desire and a willingness to genuinely and authentically approach this in a collaborative way, we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to reach the same people that need the support and services, complemented each other. This was not about a hospital taking over and bullying its way into a relationship because we have such a significant footprint in the community. It's a true partnership. It's collaborative. It's complementary. And if you walk into the facility, for example, in the downtown, you won't be able to distinguish who's a CMHA or a Hôtel-Dieu employee, or we have a number of other small agencies that have swing offices there. The results have been nothing short of outstanding. Our reach into the community has been tremendous. The work accomplished has been tremendous. The outcomes have been important. We've been able to divert from the ER significant number of people. Instead of presenting in the emergency room during a mental health or addictions crisis, if someone is not at risk to themselves or at risk of harming others, there's a healthy and a very good alternative with our program. And so that's one example of a bridge that's been built from an operations perspective. From a fundraising perspective, and you know this from your experience as well, those bridges are incredibly important, or equally important as well. And I mentioned in honor of the ones we love, which is a big partner of ours, the Klundert family from BK Cornerstone. I'd love to acknowledge the Soltz family and the Soltz Family Foundation, the Toldo family, the Toldo Family Foundation, the Tafor family and their foundations, the Schwab family and their foundations, the Zuckelman family and their foundation. And I also want to acknowledge Transition to Betterness, Doris and Tanya, the co-founders of that organization. We've been involved in a number of projects with them as well. I mean, to be able to rattle off that many foundations in 30 seconds, it goes to show you that this community of about 400,000 in Windsor-Essex have people that have hearts of gold. They have the ability and the resources to support their own, and they do, and they show up. And they have showed up during the pandemic, Arms. They really certainly have. And they get called upon quite a bit, there's no shortage of good causes, and they have to make difficult decisions at times. And we're quite blessed here to have built those bridges, those relationships, both from an operations perspective, day in and day out, and certainly from a fundraising perspective as well.
Just go to a few comments here. We're live on LinkedIn, by the way. Mark says, Bill is a great pillar of our community. We're blessed to have him right here in Windsor-Essex. Mark, thank you so much for the comment. And I think certainly, and that's something else I wanted to talk to you since I got you here tonight, Bill, is to talk a little bit about your time during City Council. But, the Friends of Fontainebleau, I'll use that as a sort of a talking point to when we get into your time as a city councilor as well. But when you have those kind of relationships and you're able to authentically lift everyone up together, I think that bodes well and sort of reverberates with the community to say, yeah, these are people we can count on. These are people we can trust. These are people that we can rely on. And we may not always get it right, but we're going to get it. We're going to work through it together. And I think certainly from a Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare lens, that's something that you and the team have done, especially from a foundation standpoint, again, because you've been able to build those fantastic relationships with all these foundations and certainly the community at large. I go back to, that sort of spokesperson, Dominic, that you mentioned for some of the COVID long-term programs that you guys have too. I mean, what better way to have somebody who's have that lived experience to speak about the necessity of what you're offering at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare? I mean, you're not just hearing from another quote unquote talking head. This is somebody who's actually lived the experience and has been able to champion the benefits of something like this for Windsor-Essex.
Absolutely. And before we go on, Mark Lombardi, who just provided that comment, shout out to him. He's a small business owner in our region. I don't know if you know that or not about Mark.
Yep.
And he's a very generous donor and supporter of good causes as well. So thank you, Mark, for what you and your wife and your family does as well. To your point, I completely agree. It's a philosophy actually at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare where we didn't want to create a single spokesperson organization when it comes to public relations and media relations. And we've applied that same principle and philosophy when it comes to our patients' programs, because their voice, their experience, and again, I know you've said this already, lends authenticity to the message. And Dominic is only one good example because of what we've gone through with COVID. He's been tremendous. And his wife, Mima, and their whole circle around them, they've demonstrated that it does take a village to support an individual in need. And, I can't speak for Dominic or his family, but I know if he was here tonight, he would tell you that he would acknowledge the social workers, the rehab staff, the nursing staff, the physicians. His journey started with Windsor Regional Hospital, where they were able to literally save his life. And then his journey of restoration continued here at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. Those are not just statements or words that I'm saying. That's very real life and life and death circumstances in the case of many. And we're fortunate for a region our size to have the level of expertise that we do in our medical profession and have the partnerships that we do. And you mentioned Friends of Fontainebleau. That was just one of the many instances, even in my political career, where that same approach to bridging and creating relationships, Arms, clearly proved to be the only way to achieve what was right, and in that case, for that community and that neighborhood. And I thank you for mentioning them, because that's just a wonderful group of individuals that have been together for over 20 years now. And talk about grassroots, man. It doesn't get any more grassroots in neighborhood than Friends of Fontainebleau. And a shout out to them, because I know they're still quite active and working closely with Gary Kaschek in that community.
Well, it just goes back to, and that's something else I want to talk a little bit about too. Again, going back to your political career too, and during my days in broadcast, I mean, I close to 2 decades in the city between pretty much most of the major newsrooms here in the city. But I don't think, and I mean this honestly, Bill, I don't think there has been a politician or somebody of your level who has not been more accessible to me. And granted, I never really had any ulterior gotcha journalism with you. Right? Anytime I would, hey Bill, can you come on the show and talk about this? Yeah, no problem. I'm say call your TV, radio. What do you want to do? But you were always very accessible, and I think that lends itself. You talk about authenticity when you talk about the folks from Fountain Blue, because I know some of people we know are actually involved with them, and they speak very highly of you because not only did they feel heard, and they certainly do under Gary as well, but they were able to talk to you about some of the issues that they might have had. And it's amazing to me from a customer service lens how often that doesn't happen sometimes in 2021. We're sort of in that age of instant gratification where you got to get everything 24/7, and that's fine. But it's that personalized approach, that sort of connection, that bridge building, I think sometimes may be lacking when it comes to connecting to folks here in the community and really around the world. I mean, there's sometimes those missed lines with communication that, you can really take that lens and say, okay, well, this is what we're about. How can we help you out?
Well, I have to acknowledge you and your colleagues in the broader media community because during my 21 years on council, the relationships at times were challenging because you were doing your job as a media community and asking elected officials, myself included at the time, some very good questions and tough questions. But being available and accessible, and I really thank you for the compliment, Arms. That was important because I saw that very much as an important part of my role being an elected official at the time. I needed to work with
Mhm.
the media to disclose information, be transparent, share information, and to your point, lend a voice to the community that I was representing. I represented, for years there was the five ward system. We had as many as 45,000 constituents in a single ward, and that was reduced to about half when we switched to 10 wards. But that was an important aspect of my role, and it continues in my role here at the hospital. And so, we talk about bridge building on a very macro level with foundations and relationships with partners and service providers. On a micro level, on a one-on-one basis, those relationships are just as important to bridge. And you were a tremendous partner and always easy to work with and always fair. And I found that you always did your homework and you knew what you were asking about, and that made the dialogue that much easier. But both you and I know that it wasn't about you and it wasn't about me. It was about sharing news and information with the community, informing our community, and making sure that they had the most current information available, whether it was a challenging circumstance or a good news story. That's what our role was collectively. And I think we did a pretty darn good job together of that.
God bless you, my friend. I appreciate that. When I made the jump over to the public broadcaster and I was doing sort of the harder news, I mean, that was a learning curve for me too. I've always approached anything I've done in broadcast and certainly in some of my outreach work and certainly in my role now at the Humane Society has been sort of like you said, it's making connections with people. I think Windsor's a small enough town, Windsor in Essex County. It's like you're 5 degrees separated from most folks. And it's funny the people I run into from a Humane Society lens that have stories to tell about certain people we know or folks that you may have touched their lives in some sort of way in the last in your particular career. It's amazing to me. And I mean that's one of the many reasons my family has stayed in Windsor-Essex is because I believe in the good of the community, and I think that, like you said, you can ask tough questions, but you can also do it in a very respectful way, because that's how you build those relationships and those commitments with folks. And I think that's so crucial. I mean, I go back to the first time I actually, you and I was, I think, 2007, Fogelar Furlan. We were up on the stage with Bev Becker from the Windsor Star for WrestleMania. I think we were doing some stuff for WrestleMania on the stage because WrestleMania was over at Ford Field. And I think Eddie Francis at the time, he had done this whole thing partnership with the Ford Field. And I got a photo somewhere. I tried to find it, but it was like you and I on the stage and we were talking along with Bev Becker from the Star about, just talking to the fans because some of the WWE guys were at the Fogelar. But I just remember how engaged you were and how personable you were. And it was just really nice to see somebody that excited to be a part of something that obviously meant so much to so many people. I mean, I think it was a packed parking lot at the Fogelar, and I remember that still to this day. I'm like, man, like that was a pretty cool city councilor. Like he kind of got it, and even after the fact, you're talking to folks in the crowd. I mean, you reminisce about those days pre-COVID. It's like, oh God, but that's my earliest face to face with you. I think back in 2007.
I remember that really well, and I think after we were done, I was in the parking lot doing my Ric Flair impersonation. That was good. That was a good community event.
That
Love
was
it. Love
fun.
it. Good memory. Good memory.
Yeah, I see if I can find the photo. I'm going to flip it to you, but yeah, it was just good times. That's when I was just about getting on air, and I was doing some stuff with the A team, and it was just nice to see. But you know, as a former politician, but certainly using those connections now very much so in the healthcare realm. What are the biggest differences in your opinion, Bill, from your career as a city councilor in the early 2000s, 2010s ish era to here where we are now in 2021? What have you seen? What's your take on not only just city council, but maybe like the whole politics realm as we head into the next decade?
Well, I was first elected in 1994. I was 29 years old. That was quite a while ago now. And I can summarize the single biggest difference between the beginning of my political career and even the end, which was 3 years ago, or even current state, and that's social media. Social media, I know, has been a game changer on a number of different fronts, but most especially in politics, it created a far greater level of accessibility to politicians through various platforms. And it created an environment where more people can become engaged and involved and express their views and their opinions. At times, it can be very challenging and difficult. I can tell you that, when I was elected in November of 1994, I had my first child. He was 3 months old. I have three kids, as you know, they're 27, 25, and 22. And raising kids while you're in politics can be challenging under the best of times. I I think it's even more challenging now because of social media, because it's difficult for people to not read or see what's online. And I think there's most people that have a benevolent desire to just express themselves and make their views known. But unfortunately, sometimes those platforms are abused as well. So if I had to pick one single element or aspect of it that's been significantly different, it's been social media. It was a real game changer. And I didn't even have an email account or a cell phone, or I didn't even have a computer. I didn't even have a computer in '94 when I was first elected. I would go home from my day job and turn on my cassette and listen to my voicemail messages on my answering machine, and then return the calls the next day. There's something to be said about that approach. I'm not, and I'm
Sure.
not begrudging. I'm not begrudging technology or social media, because I've used it and I've leveraged it in a very positive way, and I continue to this day. But that was probably the most single significant shift and impact that I saw in politics and on politicians. And I mean, look what we're experiencing today with the federal election, and look at what's happening. And social media plays a significant role in it. So that's probably the biggest difference that I've noted. And again, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. There's some pros and cons to it.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with you. I was one of the earlier adopters from, I think, a media lens with social media way back when. And, I think there's a line in the sand. I know there's a few of my friends are like, oh, you got to get on TikTok. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm good with that. I'm good with Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I do the Instagram. I do love LinkedIn. I will say this: LinkedIn has been a real source of professional development, and certainly professional connections over the course of this last couple of years. But I it's funny. It's like from a lens of from the world of news. It's like, then what qualifies as news, right? Like I go back to a lot of the work I used to do on CKLW, where there'd be a car crash in the morning or something. I'd have to go cover it. I'd go cover it, and usually we're first on the scene with your update. Here's what's happening. Throw it over to Rob Sherville, right? But then folks have their cameras on their phones, so they're taking photos, and then boom, it's up, right? So then there's that instant gratification and information sharing, which needs to be verified from that lens, right? Like what's true and what's not, like you had said. But then I see the entrenchment of views on either side. right? And this is just a personal opinion for me. It's like there's very little reaching across the aisle anymore to say, is there a comparable compromise? Like, I'm not going to see it from your perspective. I am so rooted in my perspective that this is all it's going to be, and I'm going to exercise whatever, you know, opinion I might have about a particular topic or an individual online. And I just wish there would be more of the reaching across the aisle aspect, right? Like, I mean, to go back to what we said about building partnerships, it's, sometimes it takes a while to move a mountain, but if you can move it, I think it's beneficial for all, because then you're bringing more people to your side, and maybe you're seeing something from a lens that you didn't necessarily see from your particular side. But
Mhm.
everyone, I just find, is very rooted in their views sometimes. Not all people, but certainly I think social media exasperates that as well.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, my relationship with the media community shifted significantly with my career shift. And I have to say that my experience in politics, has really lent itself well to the current position I have, because I was able to continue working with people. They knew me, they trusted me, I believe, because of my political track record, and those partnerships really have paid off quite nicely. And also, I want to comment this way as well, Arms. We do our best from here at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare to also accommodate and work with media outlets, because we know the environment has changed for them. So we
For
do
sure.
our best to provide timely information. When it comes to the Windsor Star, they've been great partners as well. We do enjoy working with Craig and his team there, and we know that because they also have a printed material, there's a different way of working with them, and we do that. We work with our television partners and the newscasts in a slightly different way to be able to accommodate them, because if we can accommodate them, it accommodates getting our message out as well. And I can't say enough about even our relationship with Bell Media, and the campaigns we've been a part of for a number of years with them as well, the anti-bullying campaigns as well. So media partners are crucial, and I think, given how social media has impacted them as well, we've been very cognizant of our role and working with them in a slightly different way to accommodate their ability to share the news with the community, because ultimately that's what the goal is: getting information out, sharing information, and educating community. And so I'm glad you brought this part of it up as well, because it's, as you know, and it's been transformational for media outlets, and it's been a challenge for them at times.
Yeah, and I think it's there's more of that need to do and certainly, like you said, in the case of Dominic's story, is to, yes, there's a new program launching, but let's put a personable lens, right? And you see that sort of work through social media too. Is that you can post an update to some sort of pertinent policy, right? But if you can really put a face to that policy on why it's beneficial for folks, it's a little bit of more of that sort of brand journalism, a bit, to put it out there, that people are more apt to absorb that message. I feel, in my opinion, you always try to give somebody a takeaway. I go back to some of the work we've done at the Humane Society about the Texas dogs that we had brought in over the last little bit, and to get some of the reaction from some of the folks who are fostering these dogs too. It just kind of put it full circle, right? And to have that personalized approach to things, I think it's so crucial too. But I mean, from a lens, Bill, of being a city councilor, in Windsor in the late '90s into the 2000s, how do you feel about the development of Windsor? How do you feel about how Windsor has been, I guess, moving into a particular direction? I was speaking to some of my contacts in the real estate industry, and they seem to think that this is going to be a beneficial period for Windsor, that we're going to see a lot of these folks from the GTA area, and we have seen it sort of been migrating to us to kind of add a little bit more diversity, and add some expansion to these different areas in the Windsor-Essex County neighborhoods, like even like Manning Road. I was out there the other day, and I couldn't believe how busy it is, and how much development is going up. But I mean, from that lens, how do you see Windsor going, and how do you feel about the progress Windsor has made over the last several decades?
Well, I want to thank you for asking that question, because I'd really like to acknowledge Mayor Drew Dilkins and members of council, for having to navigate a very difficult environment with the pandemic, but yet being very steadfast with policies and supports in the community to ensure that there's continued investment and development. I'm really optimistic and encouraged, and I know there's a lot of concern around questions of affordability, and I share those concerns around affordable housing and just affordable living for individuals. And I think there are tools and mechanisms that the municipality can continue to leverage, and it looks like they are. But yeah, driving around town, you can see pockets of really exciting development. Even I'm at my office here tonight. On my way to the office here, I drove through my old ward, and I saw a couple of significant residential developments that are just popping up in areas where, for many, many years, it was just abandoned property. The Rosati family, you might recall, purchased all that property over at Central and EC Row. There's some
Mhm.
additional activity happening there as we speak. If you drive down the service road, you'll see some construction happening there. I did see what's happening in the Manning Road area out in the Tecumseh and Lakeshore area. Talk about transformational. There's some great work being done by developers like David Petretta and Rocco Tullio, local guys who have
Sure.
taken companies and seen some tremendous investment here. And I love shouting out people that are local that are doing great things. They're investing in this community. They're employing people, and they're moving the economic barometer forward. Before I left council, I chaired the planning committee for a number of years, the planning and development committee, and we instituted a policy where it provided significant financial incentives for residential development. And one of the first ones out of the gates was Mr. Valente there with his multi-residential development on Willett Avenue in the 800 block. And notwithstanding some concerns and challenges, it went ahead, and it was followed by quite a number of other applications and other investors. So, a shout out to the local development community because they've done a great job. And I think there's potential for so much more to happen. I'm excited to see what's going to happen, on the 6 acres of the former Grace Hospital property. As you might recall, that
Mhm.
contract was awarded as well to a partnership development group. And, the new hospital development is on the horizon as well. We saw the needle move on that as well. And a lot's going to happen along that County Road 42 corridor. So I'm optimistic. I'm practically a lifelong resident. I chose not to leave. I've been here 53 of my 56 years. My kids are here, and I'm confident that my family can continue to thrive and enjoy this community, and so can other families. So even though I'm out of politics, Arms, I much like you, I stay in touch with a lot of business people, developers. I talk to a lot of elected officials on a regular basis, and the signs are good. And notwithstanding the shadow of the pandemic still over us, there is
Sure.
room for optimism and certainly signs of optimism for continued success and economic achievements in the Windsor and Essex region.
Yeah, I think it's really nice to see too, Bill. It's like, I'm going to be 40 this year, and out of my, coming up on 40 years, born and raised, I mean, downtown Windsor to Remington Park to South Windsor to Amherstburg, that's where we're at now. And I just take a look at, what's happening in Windsor and, some of the developments. Like I was down Walker Road the other day, and to see some of the townhouses go up right across from the market as you approach Wyandotte. That was nice to see. And a lot of these business owners, shout out to Vito Maggio, good friend of mine and great guy who's really revitalized old Walkerville even way back when in 2008 and beyond. And it's just turning that corner when it comes to COVID, I think, in Windsor-Essex to kind of take a look at, what's possible for this area and finally, put Windsor not on the map. We've always been on the map, but have that consistent growth that the city continues to see, and certainly the region too. I mean, it's nice to see, like out here in my hood in the Amherstburg area, we continue to see some decent growth too. I know they're doing some greenhouses out near our place, and there's a lot of subdivisions popping up too. Back to the comments that we got here on our Facebook live feed. Mima says, "Hey Bill, where do you see yourself in 5 years?"
5 years older.
Truth to that, right? Truth to
that's a
that. God
that's a
willing,
dumb answer.
God willing.
Um, I God willing, I expect to continue working with Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare for the next number of years, and I'm also involved with the community. I'm on the board of directors of the Motor City Community Credit Union. I'm on the board of the Safety Village. I'm also on the board of Julian Gaudet House. So I continue to do my volunteer work in the community for no other reason other than to continue to give back to a community that's given so much to me and my family. So for now, the next 4 or 5 years are going to be focused on healthcare and supporting some of the important initiatives here. We have a 60-bed mental health expansion plan for our campus. We also have been talking to the government around a long-term care facility for Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. So there's some work to be done here, and God willing, good health. I'd like to continue focus here and continue focusing on some of my volunteer work in the community.
Uh, wanted to talk a little bit more about Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare here with you, Bill, as we continue on our discussion. And folks, you can comment in the live stream too. Bill is here with us, and we're chatting about a number of things to do with Windsor. Um, I want to talk about the team that you've surrounded yourself with, and some of the great work that the crew has done from a foundation lens too. Some fantastic individuals who are extremely talented at what they do. But I was out in that area a few weeks ago, and I saw some exciting news that the Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare Foundation team has worked up with our friends over at T2B, Amber Hunter and the team there, on some exciting things that are really tapping into the bounty of the county when it comes to some new expansions at the hospital as well. So this has something to do with greenhouses, correct?
Yes, some will call it a greenhouse, and some have called it a conservatory. This is going to be an epic project, really. Amber Hunter and Transition to Betterness Board of Directors and their entire team, along with a number of community partners. But one that I'd like to acknowledge tonight is Mucci Farms. We have been in the planning stages for the last 2.5, 3 years, longer than we would have liked, Arms. The pandemic has created some challenges along the way. But they're going to be, they're in the process of completing the design, and we're in the process of getting permits from the municipality, who have been great, to construct on site on our 33-acre campus the equivalent of a 1.5 to 2-story greenhouse slash conservatory that will grow organic foods that will be used here. T2B has, as you might recall, we have a 20-bed palliative care unit here, the Transition to Betterness palliative care unit. It was funded by the community very generously. There's a T2B kitchen. They often prepare meals for family members and visitors. So they'll be growing organic, healthy foods to supply the kitchen. Any surplus foods will be donated to the community as well. But it's also going to be a venue for special events. It's going to have a commercial kitchen. It's going to have an outdoor patio. So we'll be able to host guests, host fundraising events, hold events to provide an opportunity to visit the campus and to create public awareness. And, T2B is just one of those organizations that's become a difference maker in Windsor-Essex County. And Mucci Farms, when they learned about this opportunity, and the credit goes to T2B for bringing them on board, they've been fantastic. I've met Bert Mucci on a couple of occasions here on our campus. Just a wonderful family, a great company, very successful. And it's just another example of a family who's done well for themselves, who want to continue to give back to their community.
Yeah, Bill, I mean, Bert is just an amazing guy. I had a chance to meet him a couple of years ago, and he's just so community minded and so giving to the Essex County community as a whole. And I got to say, hats off to you and Amber and the team, because you talk about hosting events, God willing, post COVID. I think that lends itself to the authenticity again, right? Not to take away from the amazing venues that we have in Windsor-Essex, because we do have so many. And Lord knows you and I know the Gala circuit, from Chicharo Club to Kobodo Club to the list goes on, Water's Edge. I mean, we can go through the whole gamut here. But to actually have something in-house where it's convenient for folks to come and then have a look at what's happening at the campus itself and at the location, I think that would bode well for long-term fundraising sustainability for Hôtel-Dieu, and to have folks, especially some of the folks who may be in the care, who are able to maybe come out to a particular event. It's right there in your own backyard. It's everything you need is right there.
Absolutely, and we share the philosophy of ensuring that whatever is created on this campus is here for the use of the community and for the benefit of the community. The greenhouse movement on this campus, I want to acknowledge another group, if you would indulge me for a moment.
Sure.
Started a few years ago. I want to give a shout out to rather the Windsor St. Clair Rotary Club. We on this 33-acre campus also host the Regional Children's Center, where we provide programs and services for young men and women who have behavioral developmental issues or mental health issues. We have a wonderful organization with social workers, psychologists, and PSWs, and we have a school program here. The Rotary Club of Windsor St. Clair built a greenhouse for these young people a few years ago, just before the pandemic. And I got to tell you, it's become the source of inspiration and some great programming. And you walk in there, and under the leadership of individuals like our own Kyle Williamson and his team at the RCC, it's just a pleasure to see these 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids enjoy this wonderful greenhouse that was fully constructed 100% through donations as a result of the Windsor St. Clair Rotary Club. So thank you to them. And that legacy of giving continues with the project that we just talked about with T2B. I will have to come back on the show to make sure we show the greenhouse when it's completed,
Yeah.
and make sure we invite you and everyone to come to the ribbon cutting and really
Sure.
celebrate this thing when it's finally open to the public.
I said to Carrie, my wife, Bill, who I don't think you've met officially, but I know you and I have talked about, through the ages about our significant and better halves. I said to Carrie, I go, I've had a few people interested in doing the podcast live from a particular event, so it'd be kind of nice to do the live from Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. To unveil something like that. That would be kind of cool to see and do. Debbie says in the comment, Bill, awesome to hear of your involvement in so many projects, Bill, especially Julian Gaudet. Takes me back to Care for a Cause, Lisa Richardson, benefit fashion show fundraisers we did, and modeling with you. So that's kind of neat. Like, so you're not even like just emceeing stuff like through the years, right? You're actually actively involved in some of these fundraisers over the course of many years.
Wow. Care for a Cause, Lisa Richardson. Thank you, Debbie. Yeah, when they came calling, the answer was a quick yes, and how can I help and how can I support? And they even allowed me to go on the runway. Think about that, Arms. But
You probably did awesome.
Whatever it takes to help out the community. Debbie, thank you for that comment and that reminder. Yes, I do remember those wonderful events, Care for a Cause.
Michelle Suchu from Workforce Windsor-Essex joining the live stream, and she says, what an incredible opportunity to train individuals who want to work in micro agriculture, referring to the greenhouse project with Muji Farms and T2B. Some great folks over there, too, doing some incredible work at Workforce as well.
Yeah, Michelle and all of those folks are amazing. I've had the privilege of knowing Michelle for a few years and working with her in a professional capacity, and paths have crossed during the pandemic as well. Because our work has been well beyond the boundaries of our hospital. So, Michelle, good to hear from you. And yes, I agree with your comment as well.
Debbie says, hey, you know what? You're welcome, Bill, and you did fine.
There we go. Thumbs up.
We got a couple more minutes left to go, and I want to say kudos to you for spending some time with me. I mean, I've always looked up to you through the years. I think you're so community-minded and certainly a very approachable man here in Windsor-Essex, but you've assembled a fantastic team of people, folks in the foundation lens and certainly from the relationship lens at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. And I want to shout out to a couple of your folks that I've certainly worked with over the years. Of course, Danny Probert, who was awesome on the show, by the way. She did an amazing job, and so great to talk to you too. I mean, she's got so many great stories. But Barb Seven, Nicole Crozier, Erica Kolovic. I mean, the list goes on and on. Some of these folks that you certainly work with, and I've worked with over the years too. I mean, what a great team of folks who really, I guess, when you talk about, I'm not a sports guy, Bill, you know that, but you talk about, people kind of knowing how they're playing on the field. You've got all the right players in the right positions.
It's a very wonderful team of individuals. And if I can add a few more names there, you've mentioned a few. Linda Delosio and Heather Parise, who are extraordinary fundraisers, and they're really effective at creating partnerships. Therese Below, our financial analyst. You can't run a foundation without the person behind the numbers. And this is a really good time for me to formally confirm with you, Arms, that Barb has just recently taken on the role of executive director of the foundation. I've transitioned to take on a few other responsibilities for the hospital, still involved with the foundation. But Barb is the new ED, taking on day to day. I continue to stay connected to that wonderful group that you've mentioned. But Heather, Linda, Therese, Barb, and then Erica, Makaya, Massimo, and Nicole from the comms team. There's a lot of mutual respect. Teamwork is integral. It's hard sometimes, but these individuals are consummate professionals. It's all about the foundation. It's all about the hospital. It's all about our patients. It's all about our programs and services. And that's where we're successful. And yes, I agree. I did watch Danny on your show last week. She was awesome. And what you saw last week, by the way, and what you heard, is who Danny Probert is.
Oh, for sure.
She's as down to earth as anyone you know, and her family are integral to our community because they've made a difference. They've changed the landscape of healthcare with their impact, their story, the tragic loss of Bob under those difficult circumstances, yet they were able to take their experience and do something special. So it doesn't get any better than that. Those people you've named, really, they make my day each and every day that I'm here at the hospital.
Well, God bless them too, because Barb, what an amazing woman. through the years, even from a broadcast lens, I remember hosting the mental health gala. It was in November, and I remember doing a shoot at the on the TAFE campus with you guys way back when. And I just remember Barb just being so warm and welcoming, and just working with her through the years on a couple of different initiatives. She's just awesome. And then I said Nicole Crozier, just solid individual as well. I mean, somebody I've looked up to as well, in terms of just somebody being committed to just getting the right information out. So I think
Yeah,
it's so crucial.
thank you for
Dominic
acknowledging
says,
them, Mark.
"Oh my God, my pleasure. They're great folks, right?" Dominic here, your spokesperson says, "Hey Arms, you do need to do a podcast from the hospital to honor all of our great frontliners and the entire staff that have helped so many of us." So yeah, I just that's cool that Dominic is on the team here, and he says, "Arms, you must say Dominic wishes the Maple Leafs need a team like the one at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare." Yeah, Bill will get a kick out
Nice.
of it. There you
Yeah,
go.
well, I've got my banner back here, right there. There it is. There's my Leaf banner. Die
Oh,
hard.
bless your heart. Yeah, I mean that's great that you get that interaction from folks too as well. That comes into play. I also wanted to, with a few minutes left here on the show, because I know you're gracious enough to do this on your spare time, and I certainly appreciate it. And our audience after the fact too. Podcast will be up on Spotify. You can listen to Bill and I's chat, and also on YouTube if you miss a live stream. Shout out to the executive team too, including Janice Caffer. Leading the helm at Hôtel-Dieu, and like you said at the beginning of the show, I don't think anybody expected 2019, 2020 to be the years that they've been. Certainly in 2021 as well, but it helps when you have somebody who's extremely versed in helping people get through tough times, and I think that's certainly the lens where Janice came in from and was able to provide for the staff at Hôtel-Dieu.
Absolutely. She's been our president and CEO now for 7 years, and none of us anticipated going through anything remotely close to this. But Janice's, diverse background, her clinical experience. She's a nurse by profession. She's held a number of leadership roles over the years, both in Ontario and out east in Nova Scotia. She's worked in community care. All of those experiences have culminated into a very effective and impactful president and CEO. She's very, very accessible and open. She very literally has an open door and open phone policy. Any frontline staff will tell you if they have something that they want to talk to the CEO about, they don't have to go through a number of gatekeepers. They can go directly to Janice. She's accessible and amenable. She's honest. She's candid. She's forthright. She's transparent. And we've been blessed to have the leadership that we've had during this real challenging time. And I've worked for Janice from the day she became president and CEO, and I can tell you that I have learned a lot from her, and she's been a mentor to many of us. And again, I want to I really appreciate you acknowledging Janice and the entire executive team. If she were on with us right now, she'd tell you that she'd appreciate those comments and compliments, but she's surrounded by a number of very strong leaders across this organization, and I echo that sentiment. There are some great people here. She's one of those leaders that surrounds herself with some strong, capable, competent individuals, and then allows them to do what they do best. Not micromanage or hover over their shoulder, but allow them to do what they do best. And she's there to lead and support, and that's why we've been as successful as we have been.
Michelle from Workforce Windsor-Essex joins in on the feed here, and she says Janice is an incredible leader for Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare and the community. Hôtel-Dieu, an anchor organization for Prosperous initiative, coordinating that as well. And I think that's crucial too. It's not just about what's happening in your hospital; it's also happening in the communities in which you serve. And I think that's where a lot of that outreach, I mean, even post-COVID or during COVID, as so to speak, is so crucial, because you still want to be connected very much to the people that you serve.
Oh, absolutely. And I know we touched upon this at the beginning of this broadcast around bridging those relationships. The municipality has been a key partner for ourselves as well. The University of Windsor and St. Clair College, we have affiliation agreements with both those organizations. We have a research partnership with the other hospitals and with the university as well. And we're involved with WeSpark, which we've been hearing about quite a bit. So it's very, very much about what's also happening in the community. We're not just focused on the borders of this campus. It's partnerships in the community. It's investing in the community, and sometimes partnership In a partnership situation, Arms will take a lead role when we're asked to. At times, it's standing side by side with a partner, and other times, it's standing behind a partner and supporting them. And wherever our best fit is, we embrace and work with partners. And Janice has been a trailblazer in that respect from the day she took on this leadership role.
Bill, with a few minutes left to go too, I want to give a shout out to your family too. I mean, we kind of touched based on that. You got beautiful children. You've got a very supportive wife. I know you love your motorcycle. I know we've talked about that before, but uh, if you to be as good as you are, or anybody is, you need to have many pieces to the pie that makes up you. And I think without having those, it can't just be work all the time, is what I'm saying. You really have to have the people supporting you. And I think certainly from that lens, from your family, you, I would say you're a very blessed man, right? You've had that support and you've had those relationships that you've been able to kind of foster outside of your family life because of your family life.
Yeah, you're right. Family has been crucial, and it's not been an easy ride at times. Though there's been some challenges, even with our own family, whether it be afflicted by significant health issues. We lost three of our four parents in a very brief period of time years ago. Two of them in their 60s. We've seen the impact of mental health and addictions around our family as well. The career has been demanding. It's put a lot of pressure on family. So to be able to be here today and enjoy still a very fulfilling career, Arms, it absolutely would not have happened, could not have happened without the support of family. And I'm very, very, very blessed in that respect. And again, I'll be the first to concede that I've not made it easy at times for them, but it's been an incredible journey, and we still have a ways to go. There's still a lot of
Sure.
important work to do, and part of it on a very personal level. A big part of it for me now is to see my three kids in their 20s evolve in their personal relationships, embrace careers, and have fulfilling lives. And selfishly, hopefully, they all stay in Windsor-Essex because it's a great place to live, great place to raise a family. And if and when that day comes and I become a no-no, I want to be able to have my little grandkids around me on a timely basis. So that's what the goal is now from a family perspective.
Plus, I'll tell you, it's a blessing to have grandparents at your side. Like, I mean, I'm lucky in my position. I'm primarily working from my home studios and office, but I am on site at the Humane Society a few times a week. But those days where I'm on the road and I'm meeting some of our donors and some of our supporters and making those connections in the community, I cannot tell you how blessed I am to have grandma and grandpa there to
Yeah.
kind of say, here's Liam, take him for a minute, like, so I think, that day when you become a no-no, I think that, you they'll be knocking on your door and saying, hey, no-no, can you take so-and-so and off with you. Right. Couple of
Right on,
different
right
comments
on. And I
before.
can assure you, I can assure you that each one of them, sorry for interrupting,
No, it's
each one
okay.
of them will have a Toronto Maple Leaf jersey, and there will be no discussion, no debate around that. That's going to be a must criteria.
Dominic says, hey, being a no-no is awesome, Bill. A few
Yeah,
other comments here.
he's a recent grandfather himself. Good for him.
Oh, it's a good. Yeah, I mean, it's a blessing, right? He goes on to say, I really want to thank the both of you for your great commitment to the community. Both very special people. So, Dominic, hey, thanks for the shout out. And again, Bill, to you, I just wanted to say thank you for being a leader and certainly a friend. I very blessed to have this connection to just email you and say, hey, can you come on the show? And you're like, yeah, absolutely, no qualms, no. I'll come on and I'll kind of shoot the breeze with you for an hour. So, to you and everybody at Hôtel-Dieu, keep doing what you guys are doing. You guys are fantastic, and I think certainly lending itself to a bit of positivity. There are good things happening in the city, at the hospital, and it's nice that we're able to connect with somebody like you and to kind of illuminate that. So, thank you for that. And Michelle says, "Hey, thank you for your commitment to our region." So, thank you, Bill.
Arms, thanks for the opportunity. Continued success with the Arms Bumanlang project, and I want to acknowledge something as well. The work that you're doing with the Humane Society. Rita and I have two dogs that are rescues. We are absolute dog lovers, animal lovers. We've rescued our two dogs through another organization called For the Love of Paws. but we have tremendous respect for the work that you and Melanie and the team are doing at the Humane Society, and then you and your wife for being the ambassadors and advocates you are for healthcare, primarily as it relates to young people, and your experience with the Ronald McDonald House. So thank you as well, Arms. I know many people appreciate the work that you're doing, and this friendship and relationship will continue for a long time. I promise you that.
Well, thank you, my friend. I will say this. I remember when, real quickly, last thing on the show, because I know you got to go, but I remember when we made it public that we were having some health challenges with Liam back in 2018 when I was at the CBC. You actually messaged me. I remember it was a random night because we just got him home from sick kids, and you messaged me and you said, if there's anything I can do, let me know. We're thinking about you and Carrie. So to me, that I still remember, like, that's a kind of positivity, that's a kind of support in dark times where you can kind of say that, these people are who they are and they walk the walk and they talk the talk. So happy to do it. If there's anything else I can do, I mean, I would love to have you guys back on the show from some sort of lens from the hospital, but just keep doing the great job that you guys are doing. And it doesn't go unnoticed with the hard work that everybody's doing at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. So thanks, Bill. I appreciate it, my friend.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you, brother. Have a good night.
You too. Drive safe. Okay. Thank you so much. Bill Marra, who is vice president at Hôtel-Dieu Grace Healthcare. Just an amazing guy. Certainly a lot of stories. We could have done like multiple hours on certainly his political career. All the different things at City Council. We keep it from a very positive lens here on the program, and some really great stuff that's happening at Hôtel-Dieu Grace as well from the entire team. I will say this, I didn't have a chance to chat to Bill about this, but I know that the Heartbreaker Challenge, plug for that, one of the best fundraisers I have ever been a part of in my life. And I said this with Danny a few episodes ago. It was actually my bachelor party before I got married. It was the Heartbreaker Challenge in 2016. So I'm really hoping we can kind of get past this for COVID, and events like the Heartbreaker Challenge can come back for the Windsor-Essex area, because it's just so amazing. So I want to thank Bill again, and spending some time with us, and everybody joining us in the live feed today. Was a lot of fun. Hey, you know what we love for you to do? If you're loving the show, a lot of great comments here. People want to get involved with the show. How can we support the Arms Bumanlag project? It's really easy. Bill had mentioned it, but my wife and I are huge supporters of the Ronald McDonald House. And yes, McHappy Day is quickly approaching. It's on the 22nd, which will be here before you know it. And we would love folks to be involved with McHappy Day. We would also love for you to show your support for the program. Here's Steve Bureau and some of the folks that have joined us over the last couple of episodes, and people who continue to support the Arms Bumanlag project by ordering these highly collectible, highly durable, and quite stylish Arms Bumanlag coffee mugs. You can order your ABP mugs right now at facebook.com/Divinal Designs Canada. And you should know that these mugs go to a great cause, because we're asking you to change the channel, upgrade your conversation with positive vibes on this show. Get those mugs. They're $20 a mug, and the proceeds go to two amazing causes. And I'm a bit biased. One of them is the Windsor-Essex County Humane Society, and the other one is the Ronald McDonald House in Windsor Regional Hospital. So if you'd like to get your hands on these mugs, they're really cool. Very, very nice mugs, and they hold a ton of coffee. Coffee not included. You can message me or find Divinal Designs Canada on Facebook. Debbie and her team are working on the merch for the show, and we'd love for you to sponsor and get your hands on a highly collectible mug as well. So that's going to do it for this edition of the project. We're back Friday night with my friend Bethany Russell from Brava Music Academy. She's been doing some pretty crazy stuff in terms of pandemic pivots. You go from teaching kids music school, to kind of reinventing the wheel on how you want to reach the community. So Bethany is super talented too. She'll be on the show Friday night at 8 o'clock. Have a great rest of the evening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, you can find the previous editions of the show on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search the Arms Bumanlag Project, or check out my YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Take care. We'll see you Friday night.